Milk. From Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia. This article is about the fluid produced by the mammary glands of mammals. For the milk-like beverages derived from plants, see plant milk. For other uses of the word, see milk disambiguation. Dairy milk redirects here. For the line of chocolate products, see Cadbury dairy milk. Milk is a white, nutrient-rich liquid food produced in the mammary glands of mammals. It is the primary source of nutrition for infant mammals, including humans who are breastfed, before they are able to digest other types of food. Early lactation milk contains colostrum, which carries the mother's antibodies into its young, and can reduce the risk of many diseases. It contains many other nutrients, including protein and lactose. Interspecies consumption of milk is not uncommon, particularly among humans, many of whom consume the milk of other animals. As an agricultural product, milk, also called dairy milk, is extracted from farm animals during or soon after pregnancy. Dairy farms produced about 730 million tons of milk in 2011 from 260 million dairy cows. India is the world's largest producer of milk and is the leading exporter of skimmed milk powder, yet it exports a few other milk products. The ever-increasing rise in domestic demand for dairy products and a large demand-supply gap could lead to India becoming a net importer of dairy products in the future. New Zealand, Germany, and the Netherlands are the largest exporters of milk products. China and Russia were the world's largest importers of milk and milk products until 2016, when both countries became self-sufficient, contributing to a worldwide glut of milk. Throughout the world, more than 6 billion consume milk and milk products. Between 750 and 900 million people live in dairy farming households. Etymology and Terminology. The term milk comes from Old English mjölk, West Saxon, milk, Anglian, from Proto-Germanic melos, milk, source also of Old Norse mjölk, Old Frisian meluk, Old Saxon miluk, Dutch milk, Old High German miller, German milch, Gothic milux. In food use, from 1961, the term milk has been defined under Codex Alimentarius standards as the normal mammary secretion of milking animals obtained from one or more milkings without either addition to it or extraction from it, intended for consumption as liquid milk or for further processing. The term dairy relates to animal milk and animal milk products. A substance secreted by pigeons to feed their young is called crop milk, and bears some resemblance to mammalian milk, although it is not consumed as a milk substitute. Non-dairy milks. Further information, plant milk. The definition above precludes non-animal products which resemble dairy milk in color and texture, such as almond milk, coconut milk, rice milk, and soy milk. In English, the word milk has been used to refer to milk-like plant juices since 1200 AD. Traditionally, a variety of non-dairy products have been described with the word milk, including the traditional digestive remedies milk of magnesia and milk of bismuth. Latex, the complex and inedible emulsion that exudes from the stems of certain plants, is generally described as milky and is often sold as rubber milk because of its white appearance. The word latex itself is deducted from the Spanish word for milk. A 2018 survey by the International Food Information Council Foundation suggests consumers in the United States do not typically confuse plant-based milk analogs with animal milk and dairy products. In the US, mostly plant-based milk alternatives now command 13% of the milk market, leading the US dairy industry to attempt multiple times to sue producers of dairy milk alternatives, to have the name milk limited to animal milk, so far without success. The Food and Drug Administration generally supports restricting the term milk, while the U.S. Department of Agriculture supports the continued use of terms such as soy milk. In the European Union, words such as milk, butter, cheese, cream, and yogurt are legally restricted to animal products, with exceptions such as coconut milk, almond milk, peanut butter, and ice cream. Production of milk substitutes from fats of brewers' yeast is under development by organizations including Impossible Foods, Roofree, and the biohacker group Real Vegan Cheese. Some components would be chemically identical to those in animal-derived milk. Others, such as lactose, to which many people are allergic, may be substituted. Types of consumption. Milk consumption occurs in two distinct overall types: a natural source of nutrition for all infant mammals and a food-based food product obtained from other mammals for consumption by humans of all ages. Nutrition for infant mammals. Main articles: breastfeeding and lactation. In almost all mammals, milk is fed to infants through breastfeeding, either directly or by expressing the milk to be stored and consumed later. The early milk from mammals is called colostrum. Colostrum contains antibodies that provide protection to the newborn baby, as well as nutrients and growth factors. The makeup of the colostrum and the period of secretion varies from species to species. For humans, the World Health Organization recommends exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months, and breastfeeding in addition to other food for up to 2 years of age or more. In some cultures, it is common to breastfeed children for 3 to 5 years, and the period may be longer. Fresh goat's milk is sometimes substituted for the breast milk, which introduces a risk of the child developing electrolyte imbalances, metabolic acidosis, megaloblastic anemia, and a host of allergic reactions. Food product for humans. In many cultures, especially in the West, humans continue to consume milk beyond infancy, using the milk of other mammals, especially cattle, goats, and sheep, as a food product. Initially, the ability to digest milk was limited to children, as adults did not produce lactase, an enzyme necessary for digesting the lactose in milk. People therefore converted milk to curd, cheese, and other products to reduce the levels of lactose. Thousands of years ago, a chance mutation spread in human populations in Europe that enabled the production of lactase in adulthood. This mutation allowed milk to be used as a new source of nutrition which could sustain populations when other food sources failed. Milk is processed into a variety of products such as cream, butter, yogurt, kefir, ice cream, and cheese. Modern industrial processes use milk to produce casein, whey protein, lactose, condensed milk, powdered milk, and many other food additives and industrial products. Whole milk, butter, and cream have high levels of saturated fat. The sugar lactose is found only in milk, forsythia flowers, and a few tropical shrubs. The enzyme needed to digest lactose, lactase, reaches its highest levels in the human small intestine after birth and then begins a slow decline unless milk is consumed regularly. Those groups who do contain to tolerate milk, however, often have exercised great creativity in using the milk of domesticated ungulates, and not only of cattle, but also sheep, goats, yaks, water buffalo, horses, reindeer, and camels. India is the largest producer and consumer of cattle and buffalo milk in the world. History. Humans first learned to consume the milk of other mammals regularly following the domestication of animals during the Neolithic Revolution or the development of agriculture. This development occurred independently in several global locations from as early as 9000 to 7000 BC in Mesopotamia to 35,000 to 3000 BC in the Americas. People first domesticated the most important dairy animals, cattle, sheep, and goats, in southwest Asia, although domestic cattle had been independently derived from wild aurochs populations several times since. Initially, animals were kept for meat, and archaeologist Andrew Sherwood has suggested that dairying, along with the exploitation of domestic animals for hair and labour, began much later in the separate secondary products revolution in the 4th millennium BC. Sherwood's model is not supported by recent findings, based on the analysis of lipid residue in prehistoric pottery, that shows that dairying was practiced in the early phases of agriculture in southwest Asia by at least the 7th millennium BC. From southwestern Asia, domestic dairy animals spread to Europe, beginning around 7000 BC, but did not reach Britain and Scandinavia until after 4000 BC, and South Asia 7000 to 5500 BC. The first farmers in Central Europe and Britain milked their animals. Pastoral and pastoral nomadic economies, which rely predominantly or exclusively on domestic animals and their products rather than crop farming, were developed as European farmers moved into the Pontic-Caspian steppe in the 4th millennium BC, and subsequently spread across much of the Eurasian steppe. Sheep and goats were introduced to Africa from southwest Asia, but African cattle may have been independently domesticated around 7000 to 6000 BC. Camels, domesticated in Central Arabia in the 4th millennium BC, have also been used as demi animals in North Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. The earliest Egyptian records of burn treatments describe burn dressings using milk from mothers of male babies. In the west of the world, i.e., East and Southeast Asia, the Americas and Australia, milk and dairy products were historically not a large part of the diet, either because they remained populated by hunter-gatherers who did not keep animals, or the local agricultural economies did not include domesticated dairy species. Milk consumption became common in these regions comparatively recently, as a consequence of European colonialism and political domination over much of the world in the last 500 years. In the Middle Ages, milk was called the virtuous white liquor, because alcoholic beverages were safer to consume than water. Industrialization. The growth in urban population, coupled with the expansion of the railway network in the mid-19th century, brought about a revolution in milk production and supply. Individual railway firms began transporting milk from rural areas to London from the 1840s and 1850s. Possibly the first such instance was in 1846, when St. Thomas's Hospital in Southwark contracted with milk suppliers outside London to ship milk by rail. The Great Western Railway was an early and enthusiastic adopter, and began to transport milk into London from Maidenhead in 1860. Despite much criticism. By 1900, this company was transporting over 25 million gallons annually. The milk trade grew slowly through the 1860s, but went through a period of extensive structural change in the 1870s and 1880s. Urban demand began to grow as consumer purchasing power increased and milk became regarded as a required daily commodity. Over the last 3 decades of the 19th century, demand for milk in most parts of the country doubled or, in some cases, tripled. Legislation in 1875 made the adulteration of milk illegal. This combined with a marketing campaign to change the image of milk. The proportion of rural imports by rail as a percentage of total milk consumption in London grew from under 5% in the 1860s to over 96% by the early 20th century. By that point, the supply system for milk was the most highly organized and integrated of any food product. The first glass bottle packaging for milk was used in the 1870s. The first company to do so may have been the New York Dairy Company in 1877. the Express Dairy Company in England began glass bottle production in 1880. In 1884, Hervey Thatcher, an American inventor from New York, invented a glass milk bottle called Thatcher's Common Sense Milk Jar, which was sealed with a waxed paper disc. Later, in 1932, plastic-coated paper milk cartons were introduced commercially. In 1863, French chemist and biologist Louis Pasteur invented pasteurization, a method of killing harmful bacteria in beverages and food products. He developed this method while on summer vacation in Arbois to remedy the frequent acidity of the local wines. He found out experimentally that it is sufficient to heat a young wine to only about 50 to 60 degrees Celsius, 122 to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, for a brief time to kill the microbes, and that the wine could be nevertheless properly aged without sacrificing the final quality. In honor of Pasteur, the process became known as pasteurization. Pasteurization was originally used as a way of preventing wine and beer from souring. Commercial pasteurization equipment was produced in Germany in the 1880s, and producers adopted the process in Copenhagen and Stockholm by 1885. Overproduction. Further information, overproduction and butter mountain. Continued improvements in the efficiency of milk production led to a worldwide glut of milk by 2016. Russia and China became self-sufficient and stopped importing milk. Canada has tried to restrict milk production by forcing new farmers such an increased capacity to buy in at 24,000 Canadian dollars per cow. Importing milk is prohibited. The European Union theoretically stopped subsidizing dairy farming in 2015. Direct subsidies were replaced by environmental incentives, which results in the government buying milk when the price falls to €200 per 1,000 liters, 260 US gallons. The United States has a voluntary insurance program that pays farmers depending upon the price of milk and the cost of feed. Sources. The females of all mammal species can by definition produce milk, but cow's milk dominates commercial production. In 2011, FAO estimates 85% of all milk worldwide was produced from cows. Human milk is not produced or distributed industrially or commercially. However, human milk banks collect donated human breast milk and redistribute it to infants who may benefit from human milk for various reasons: premature neonates, babies with allergies, metabolic diseases, etc., but who cannot be breastfed. In the Western world, cow's milk is produced on an industrial scale and is by far the most commonly consumed form of milk. Commercial dairy farming using automated milking equipment produces the vast majority of milk in developed countries. Dairy cattle, such as the Holstein, have been bred selectively for increased milk production. About 90% of the dairy cows in the United States and 85% in Great Britain are Holsteins. Other dairy cows in the United States include Ayrshire, Brown Swiss, Guernsey, Jersey, and milking Shorthorn, dairy Shorthorn. Other animal-based sources. Aside from cattle, many kinds of livestock provide milk used by humans for dairy products. These animals include water buffalo, goat, sheep, camel, donkey, horse, reindeer, and yak. The first four respectively produced about 11%, 2%, 1.4%, and 0.2% of all milk worldwide in 2011. In Russia and Sweden, small moose dairies also exist. According to the U.S. National Bison Association, American bison, also called American buffalo, are not milked commercially. However, various sources report cows resulting from crossbreeding bison and domestic cattle are good milk producers. and have been used both during the European settlement of North America and during the development of commercial beef filler in the 1970s and 1980s. Swine are almost never milked, even though their milk is similar to cow's milk and perfectly suitable for human consumption. The main reasons for this are that milking sows numerous small teats is very cumbersome, and that sows cannot store their milk as cows can. A few pig farms do sell pig cheese as a novelty item. These cheeses are exceedingly expensive. In 2012, the largest producer of milk and milk products was India, followed by the United States of America, China, Pakistan, and Brazil. All 28 European Union members together produced 153.8 million tons of milk in 2013, the largest by any politico-economic union. Increasing affluence in developing countries, as well as increased promotion of milk and milk products, has led to a rise in milk consumption in developing countries in recent years. In turn, the opportunities presented by these growing markets have attracted investments by multinational dairy firms. Nevertheless, in many countries, production remains on a small scale and presents significant opportunities for diversification of income sources by small farms. Local milk collection centers, where milk is collected and chilled prior to being transferred to urban dairies, are a good example of where farmers have been able to work on a cooperative basis, particularly in countries such as India. Production yields. FAO reports Israel dairy farms are the most productive in the world, with a yield of 12,546 kilograms, 27,659 pounds, milk per cow per year. This survey over 2001 and 2007 was conducted by ICAR, International Committee for Animal Recording, across 17 developed nations or countries, whatever. The survey found that the average herd size in these developed countries increased from 74 to 99 cows per herd between 2001 and 2007. A dairy farm had an average of 19 cows per herd in Norway and 337 in New Zealand. Annual milk production in the same period increased from 7,726 to 8,550 kilograms, 17,033 to 18,850 pounds per cow in these developed countries. The lowest average production was in New Zealand at 3,974 kilograms, 8,761 pounds per cow. The milk yield per cow depended on production systems, nutrition of the cows, and only to a minor extent different genetic potential of the animals. What the cow ate made the most impact on the production obtained. New Zealand cows with the lowest yield per year grazed all year, in contrast to Israel with the highest yield, where the cows ate in bars with an energy-rich mixed diet. The milk yield per cow in the United States, the world's largest cow milk producer, was 9,954 kilograms, 21,945 pounds per year in 2010. In contrast, the milk yields per cow in India and China, the second and third largest producers, were respectively 1,154 kilograms, 2,544 pounds, and 2,282 kilograms, 5,031 pounds per year. Price. It was reported in 2007 that with increased worldwide prosperity and the competition of biofuel production for feedstocks, both the demand for and the price of milk has substantially increased worldwide. Particularly notable was the rapid increase of consumption of milk in China and the rise of the price of milk in the United States above the government-subsidized price. In 2010, the Department of Agriculture predicted farmers would receive an average of $1.35 per US gallon of cow's milk, 35 cents per litre, which is down 30 cents per gallon from 2007 and below the break-even point for many cattle farmers. Environmental impact. Further information: environmental impact of meat production and dairy farming, animal waste from large cattle dairies. The consumption of cow's milk poses numerous threats to the natural environment compared to plant milks. Cow's milk requires the most land and water, and its production results in the greatest amount of greenhouse gas emissions, air pollution, and water pollution. A 2010 UN report assessing the environmental impacts of consumption and production argued that animal products, including dairy, in general require more resources and cause higher emissions than plant-based alternatives. It proposed to move away from the animal products to reduce environmental damage. The global water footprint of animal agriculture is 2,422 billion cubic meters of water, 1/4 of the total global water footprint, 19% of which is related to dairy cattle. A 2012 study found that 98% of milk's footprint can be traced back to the cow's food. A 2010 Food and Agriculture Organization report found that the global dairy sector contributes to 4% of the total global anthropogenic GHG emissions. This figure includes emissions allotted to milk production, processing and transportation, and the emissions from fattening and slaughtering dairy cows. The same report found that 52% of the GHGs produced by dairy cattle is methane, and nitrous oxide makes up for another 27% of dairy cattle's GHG emission. It is estimated that cows produce between 250 and 500 liters of methane a day. Methane has a heat-trapping potential nearly 100 times larger than carbon dioxide, and nitrous oxide has a global warming potential almost 300 times greater than carbon dioxide. And that is milk. So, yeah, you should all be drinking milk. If not, you're weird, you're unhealthy, you're not normal, you're not human. Yeah, just drink milk, please. Just do it. Just drink milk, because milk is good for you. And if you drink milk, you're a good boy.